The Consumer Creditization of the U.S. Economy by Bernard C. Beaudreau, Professor of Economics, Laval University, Quebec City, Canada. Over the course of the past 2 decades, household credit in the United States has soared. Consumer credit and mortgage credit have reached record levels. The current generation is the most indebted of all times. This raises a fundamental question, namely why? Why are Americans increasingly indebted? In fact, there's every reason to believe that debt levels should be on the decline. After all, unlike the 50s and 60s, today, in general, both spouses are active in the labor force. Also, the average number of children per household has decreased markedly. So the question remains, why are American households more indebted than ever? In the Consumer Creditization of the U.S. Economy, Laval University economics professor Bernard C. Beaudreau examines this question in detail. He argues that the consumer creditization of the U.S. economy is the result of 2 developments, namely, the underincome that resulted from factory automation and outsourcing, and secondly, the various policy measures adopted by successive administrations to provide Americans with easier access to credit. His line of reasoning runs as follows. The past 3 decades witnessed 2 important structural changes in the economy, namely, factory automation and outsourcing. Both combined to lower the ratio of wage income to overall income. Firms that replaced workers with control technologies lowered their variable costs, as did those who outsourced their activities to low-wage countries. While these strategies were profitable for the firms in question, they were catastrophic for the economy as a whole, as they reduced purchasing power. As profits are a residual form of income, it stands to reason that throughout this period, income and expenditure waned. Product markets weakened as a result. This raised a fundamental policy issue, namely, how to address this problem. With the death of Keynesian economics came a new set of challenges. For example, the Reagan administration could no longer turn to fiscal policy to stimulate product markets. Nor could it turn to monetary policy, as it had chosen to bring down inflation with high interest rates. In short, it was in a policy bind. What was it to do? Beaudreau argues that it opted for financial innovation, aimed at providing Americans with easier access to household credit, defined as mortgage credit and consumer credit. And so began a series of policy measures aimed at increasing household debt, and consequently increasing overall consumer spending. Ironically, as consumers' ability to assume debt was on the wane, owing to the falling wage share, they were, rightly or wrongly, being called upon to bolster sagging U.S. and indeed world product markets. Clearly, a no-win situation. Among the key policy measures were the Garn-St. Germain Depository Institutions Act of 1982, the Secondary Mortgage Market Enhancement Act of 1984, and the Graham-Bliley-Leach Act of 1999. The result, household credit, combination of mortgage and consumer credit, soared with the expected results. U.S. and world product markets strengthened. In fact, the results were better than expected. The resulting housing boom generated unexpected gains as homeowner wealth soared. American households felt richer. Banks responded by offering easy access to home equity loans, which provided an added stimulus. The problem, as Beaudreau points out, is one of sustainability. Consumer credit cannot, over the long run, be used to keep the economy afloat. For a quarter century, household credit soared on the strength of housing prices. Not only was this a tenuous situation, it was clear that it could not go on forever. When the bubble burst, the credit house of cards came tumbling down. Seen in this light, the financial meltdown of 2008 was ultimately caused by fundamentals, specifically structural change that ushered in misguided and misconceived of, not to mention unsustainable policy measures. With factory automation and outsourcing, American and indeed the world economy are less and less able to take the goods that they produce off the market. In other words, purchase the goods they produce using wage income. Household credit provided a stopgap measure, one that was unsustainable and ultimately failed. Beaudreau concludes by pointing out that the continued presence of underincome will force the Obama administration to come up with new and more sustainable macroeconomic policy variables. For more on this, get The Consumer Creditization of the U.S. Economy by Bernard C. Beaudreau, available at all good booksellers and Amazon.com.